With the Iowa caucus only 4 days away, the campaigns on the ground for each Republican are working hard to make sure their candidate gets the support to secure a win on Monday. Our next guest has an idea of what that is like. Joining us now is someone who maybe knows GOP politics better than anyone else in Iowa, prominent strategist Dave Kochel. He's also the host of the Highball Politics podcast and was a strategist for the Romney campaign in Iowa. Dave, welcome to Top Story. Sorry that Garrett had to remind us there that I think Santorum walked away with about 6 votes or half a dozen votes when he beat Mitt Romney that time around. That was kind of wild. I wanted to have you on the show because I know you know the state inside and out, and I know you've made an important point to tell people who are covering this race that when the turnout is low, sometimes people can be surprised. We know the weather is going to be a big factor on Monday. Do you foresee any surprises on Monday with Trump so far out ahead?
Well, Look, Trump is a dominant frontrunner right now. We'll see what the polls look like over the weekend. I'm sure we'll see a big one coming in. I don't think he's at risk of not winning the caucuses. But as you know, caucuses are always measured by how you do against your expectations. So if turnout is low, there's much more likelihood for a surprise. And with the weather being what it is, I think this will be the coldest Iowa caucus in the history of the caucuses. We're talking 10 below, 20 below, not just cold and inconvenient, but it hurts and there's danger. There's, your car you might not start, battery might go dead, frostbite. There's lots of risk at this kind of weather. It's extreme. So I think it will hold down turnout a little bit. It won't hold it down much because you still have a lot of people who have been looking forward to this for a year or longer. So we'll see what it does to turnout, but definitely a low turnout can cause a surprise.
So, Dave, last night we had on the show Iowa evangelical leader Bob Vander Plaats, who has endorsed Governor Ron DeSantis. He told me that he still thinks Ron DeSantis can win Iowa. Let's listen to a piece of that.
Ron DeSantis has done the Iowa caucuses the old-fashioned way. He's gotten a lot of key endorsements. So the most important one is that of Governor Kim Reynolds. He's got a bunch of legislative endorsements. He's got 120 county chairs for 99 counties, 1,600 precinct captains. That's what it takes to win an Iowa caucus, especially on a cold winter's night. That's why my pulse does not match up with the polls, and I'm very optimistic and bullish on Ron DeSantis' chances on January 15th.
So, Dave, he was very gracious there saying he received the biggest endorsement, but he's also, you could argue, maybe received the 2 biggest endorsements with the governor and Bob Vander Plaats there as well. Evangelicals can break late. They can break together. Do we have any reason to believe they're going to break for Governor Ron DeSantis?
We have a lot of reason. Everything he said is true, is correct. And Bob Vander Plaats knows that, that coalition of voters better than anybody else in the state. He has been right the last 3 campaigns, 08, 12, and 16. The candidate that he went to and endorsed was the candidate that came out on top. But that is in an environment where all the evangelicals seem to move together, as you said, and broke late. In 2000, evangelicals were split between George W. Bush and between other lesser candidates like Gary Bauer, who came out of a Christian media background. This will be the first time since 2000 where I think we will see a split in evangelicals. Although he's got the high-profile endorsements and a lot of faith leaders on board for Ron DeSantis, you also have Donald Trump, who released about 120 faith leaders himself right around the time of the Vander Plaats endorsement. So this might be the first time we see a split in evangelicals. I think what you'll see is the demographic folks that you usually see with Trump, which is non-college, white working-class voters going with Trump, and then maybe the more affluent evangelical voters like we see out of Northwest Iowa, where Bob is from, who will be for DeSantis. So it'll be really interesting to see. I do think DeSantis is going to do well with evangelicals, but I think he's got real competition from Trump, particularly among certain types of evangelicals in certain parts of the state where Trump has an intrinsic strength.
You have the GOP pulse in Iowa. Why is former President Trump still so strong?
Well, he's really running as a quasi-incumbent, and although he didn't finish first in the caucuses in 2016, he was right there at the top with Cruz first, Trump's second, Rubio. They were all bunched together within about 4 points. And then you have him on the ballot, winning Iowa in the general election, serving as president for 4 years, losing the presidency in 2020, but he still won Iowa. He just has a lot of fans here. He represents, taking it to the establishment, taking it to Washington, D.C. Even though he was president for 4 years, he still has that outsider feel to his campaign and his candidacy. And I think there are just a lot of people who are sort of loyal to him. And among evangelicals in particular, where you would normally think they go with a candidate like DeSantis, he's got the 3 judges. He can point right back to that and say, I delivered for you. And they've been using that messaging on the road in Iowa. And so, he's running really as a quasi-incumbent. And I think that's where his advantage has been built. And we'll see what happens Monday. He's got to hit over 50 right now to meet his expectations because all the polling has him up high. And if he comes in below that in the 40s, people might ask on Tuesday morning, well, what happened with Trump? Why did he fall short of where his polling was? So that's really the game in Iowa. How do you do against your own expectations, and how do you do against the field?
We'll know in a few days. Okay, Dave Kochel for us from Iowa. Dave, we appreciate it.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.